Let's take a little walk. So when the MSBA came, took them on a tour of all the buildings and pointed out some.
Oh, there is.
Renovated in 1996. There were some new additions. This is a new addition. Old student. Now, do you know the original building is my school here?
Built in the 60s. There's two parts to it. The first part was built in like 1960 and the other part was built in 1964.
So this was 60, 64, and then in the 70s they built Hendrix. There was a lot of activity going on over 10 years.
One thing is like a big,
Originally, the gym was a standalone building. It was connected to the so you had to literally leave the main building to come to the gym. Okay, so one of the challenges that we, and you can see we've been trying to address and deal with different tiles. But because there's a groundwater issue here, the water comes up from the ground and, causes the tiles to lift. You can see, so one of the things when you've heard people talk about the FEMA mitigation grant that Mike applied for, that was to address this, to figure out, okay, because really we're up against a mountain or a hill. So the water's coming off of the hill. And remember, because there used to be this structure here, the water had a path that it was used to going down. And then when you insert when you insert the building in the middle of it, the water still wants to go.
When they connected the two buildings, this part here?
Yes.
yeah, that's when the problem started.
Yes. So the groundwater issues are something that the state was very concerned about, as are we. And again, it's nothing we can really, unless we actually figure out what the problem is and put more appropriate sump pumping and all of that kind of thing as a way to solve it, we continue to do what we're doing here, which is to, patch new flooring as we need to. So let's just continue down.
Is it actually like squishing underneath, or is it just?
It just kind of lifts up the cement. Yeah.
Right, so, we'll go up the stairs to the gym. So one of the things that was mentioned in the accreditation report is that the gym is not sufficiently sized. And it's not really about the gym not being sufficiently sized. It's about there not being a safe apron. So if you were to come here during a basketball game, you would see that over on that wall are where the kids would sit in chairs, while they're waiting. And they're literally inches they're on the apron, basically. So that's considered a challenge here. So one of the things in the proposed renovation that the architect was talking about was sort of resituating this and moving it back. So that would actually be part of the proposed renovation, so that this building, this gym then becomes appropriate based on what the expectations are.
Moving the line?
You're going to move the whole thing over because the apron isn't wide enough. They consider, and also when these bleachers pull out, they're literally here.
So where does it go? The bleachers come up to here. We're talking about knocking down walls?
No. What they would be talking about doing would be obviously getting new bleachers and literally moving the gym floor over.
Moving the gym floor with different bleachers that
That's
don't go
right.
out as far.
That's right. And then there was also discussion about creating more storage out in that. There's a landing out there to the outside, putting some storage out there, creating like a storage container or something, so that the stuff that's in here and stored doesn't need to be. But originally with the Pembroke project, what we were hoping was that we could build a bigger gym over there, and then be able to play our games over there. But because they have certain standards that they will allow in terms of square footage, elementary, middle, and high school levels, they would not support a bigger, like a full-size gym at Pembroke. Now, does that mean it could have happened? It could have, but it would have been a lot on the town's dime, and then it tended to be quite expensive, and so we didn't go that direction. But when we were asked to look at what would we do here, we said we need to address the gym here, and that addresses the NIASC issue as well. So, Chris, we were down here, we came at, I was pointing out the drainage issues, the groundwater issues that we continue to try to fix in these first floor hallways. But because we haven't been able to address the actual problem, which is the runoff and the underground water. And that was, for whatever reason, that wasn't taken care of in the renovation. When they did the renovation in '96, I'm not sure why, I wasn't here, so I don't know.
That was sort of one of the questions I asked at one of the meetings when I talked to Elise Sinkowitz there was, you know, is there anything built in the contracts for things such as that later on, or if the materials they end up using end up being substandard, any recourse to go back towards these
I
contracts?
did ask that question, and what I was told is that the company who did it is now out of business, which often happens.
That's
I've
very
been involved in
convenient, yeah.
construction things before, and that happens. And then the other thing is, apparently they did make attempts to go back after this particular general contractor, and he didn't, he just
The
never made.
contractor didn't have to pull a bond for the work for in case there was an issue at a later
Yeah,
point?
I think there was some litigious
I think they did
legal
settle on
stuff.
money,
I
but
think
not
they-
enough to do
right.
any repairs.
I think there was a settlement, but it didn't.
We don't have a contractor yet, we just have a plan for the rebuilding.
Thank you.
No, that's correct. We have an owner's project manager, and we have the architect.
Contracted out for
Right.
specific work.
So this is an example, okay?
Quick question, sorry, what would be the proposal there to correct that
With the gym?
with the water?
Oh, well, that's what.
They're gonna put all
that's-
kinds of drains.
Oh, good.
and
Okay, that's-
We'll show you some of the things we've tried to do, but it's just not, it's really, it's like a Band-Aid to the situation. So this is an example. This is a loading dock. This is intended to be a loading dock, and it is used as the drama classroom. Okay, so what you're gonna see as we go through this is that there are a lot of things going on that are great things, but they're going on in spaces that are substandard. Can we deliver it? Yeah, we can deliver it. But if you're the state and you're walking through the building, or your people look say, okay, well, you're delivering it, your curriculum is delivering it, but really they're in this space, you know, so that's part of it. We have a lot of issues with some water drainage issues outside. They come in here, and then there have been questions about, you know, we watch the air quality in here because it's moist. There's a lot of, it's really not, and they've done a lot, they're making the space the best it can be, honestly. But at one point it was the gym, not the gym, the workout space. In fact, the weight room is right next door.
Is it functioning loading dock? Is it actually?
We don't use it as a loading dock.
Door goes up, yeah.
Because we're using it as a classroom. Okay, so we'll go head out this way.
Weird to have gone to school
No.
there and now.
And then
Yeah.
I think,
Sorry.
This is the in-between spot. The weight room's actually up on the blue end.
okay, well, we'll not go there right now. So another example, again, the groundwater problems, we've had issues with moisture, and so this is how we resolved just putting new tile in here. If you stand here and you look down this hallway, and you look at what happens with the ceiling, you see how it waves? There's a moisture problem here. And again, that's something that the state saw that concerned them, you know, a lot.
I don't know, there's not gonna be any moisture problems in the new school. What are they doing differently? They just screwed this up and they didn't
Well,
properly
this,
ventilate it?
well, I think what happened here is they didn't deal with the groundwater. So, you know, there's just a lot of
That's having
moisture.
a lot of revenue.
Mike, where's
If the water comes in, it has to
This is where-
evaporate and go
It's gotta
somewhere.
go somewhere.
This is where the old building starts.
So Mike, where's the alt room? Just remind me, here we
Yeah,
go?
we're close.
We're down here, okay. So, the other thing is, when they came, we have science labs here. There were 2 originals, and there were 2 that were built. And
You wanna go through?
they noted that these, the actual 2 older ones were more consistent with what current standards are than the ones that were renovated. But the NEAS group is very concerned that we did not have enough lab stations. So that is something that we did really work hard to ensure that there are no more than 24 students in each lab station. But the science labs are something that they obviously would like us to look at, because they are not really, in their opinion, up to the current code and standards. Okay, so this is an example of, one of the things they were concerned about is that a number of our special education programs, which we've created over the years to basically give our students who have special needs a quality program in their own school as opposed to sending them out. And it's also a cost containment issue, but more importantly, a programmatic issue. So here is a space, is where our high school alternative program students are. This was apparently designed as a television studio, I think, in the renovation, but you know, they use this space as their, you know, some of it for their classroom for sometimes, and then over there is like a de-escalation space. But again, no windows, an internal classroom being used for special education students. They say that it is not sufficient because it is not consistent with what regular education students have as available workspaces. So that's one of the things they identified. In the renovation, possible plan to the redesign of the school, we wouldn't have special education students in these classrooms. So we'd reposition that. Okay, let me just think of where we want to go now. So I guess.
Floor up there, more closet.
Yeah, I think we'll just, this floor we have to fix the damage issue. The FEMA mitigation grant that Mike wrote for would have put $200,000 here and $200,000 at Pearlie, because Pearlie also has an issue with moisture. If you remember, I mean, since I've been here, you're talking about 100-year floods, there's been 3 floods at Pearlie that have actually resulted in school being canceled there because the water rose to such a level in the basement where it actually did damage to some of the Mike, what was wrong? What were electrical transformers. So again, here we are.
Is there a new roof going over there?
Excuse
Did
me?
they put a new roof in?
Roof, all set. Mike, I'm just thinking, again.
Second floor?
This is another, again, an example. This one at least has windows. This one at least has windows, but again, this is normally an office space. Some kind of an office space, or maybe you have a small group. This actually serves as a classroom for our middle school social emotional children. So again, and just look at the ceiling. You see how you just see how it's affected. The moisture is affecting it. So one major thing that will have to be done is dealing with the moisture. Okay, so we'll go back this way.
Let's see the shop over there now.
Yeah, let's do that. Yep, just through there. Okay, so we're going to move over to this area. This is the industrial technology, or some people call it the shop area. And we had some challenges with space with a large middle school population. So what we had to do was to take space here and create, this is actually ends up being a middle school art, and there is actually a section of science that gets taught in here. We weren't able to put a full wall in because of fire codes and regulations having to do with sprinkler systems and all of that. So they used this, and we were able to put some doors in. And this is the actual, what is actually left of the shop. And the other thing with the school is that this was all set up through here. Okay, so this, in the old days of the school, and Mike could probably tell you this better than I could, this whole area down here was
all
for shop area. So this was a metal shop at one point. It's now a physics classroom. Yeah, this is a physics classroom. So it's not really set up for lab science as it should be. It's a nice large size, and the teacher makes she does a good job, but at the same time, if you just kind of look at it, it's really just not set up in like a classroom should be, the lighting and all of that.
Is that because the sheer number of students that
That's
has
right.
increased over the years?
Yeah, there is definitely a bubble coming through. The last middle school class, 6th grade class, now the 7th grade class, 153 students. That's the largest we've seen. It's usually anywhere lately between 120 and 135. Although previously classes that graduate were all in the 80s, upper 80s, lower 90s. Now we're starting to see classes over 100, now into the 127. And actually, in the enrollment study, the high schools, the group that continues to keep going. It's the elementary population, and that's all based on live births. So again, it doesn't take into consideration population growth. So there's a lot of houses for sale in Georgetown. Let's say Georgetown decided to build build out a little more than it currently does, and there were kids that were school age, they would have to come to the schools. It wouldn't, that's not included in the enrollment, the long-term enrollment stuff.
We're moving into town all the time, too.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we had 19 new students moving just over the summer.
Did the apartment building, how much of an impact did that have?
Well, the apartment building, it's interesting, again, I wasn't here, but people told me that when it was originally discussed with the town, that they anticipated there'd be like less than 10 students would come from the apartments because they were luxury apartments. And, I mean, we have a bus and a half of students that come from the apartments, yes.
And total students, not like, that's what they predicted?
That's
or-
right, because people say that, some people say, I never believed that, but
And
that's.
what year was that? Do you, like, when were those built?
Look at the apartments called, Mike.
Let's see, around what, 2000 and I think 3 or 4 they started occupying.
And when did you come along?
2007.
Okay.
I know, this is my 6th year, it seems like a long time.
Yeah.
So this again, a loading dock. As you look around, it's used as an office and a small group work for one of our visually impaired students. Not intended for a classroom space, but nevertheless being used for one. We used to use this for the school resource officer. You see his, thing on the door, but we no longer have a school resource officer full-time in the schools, so we just redirected this into an instructional space that we needed. All right, Mike, where do we want to go now?
The library.
Yep. you have the library.
Leaving all these doors open.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
I'm
Mike's
gonna
going
go
to
around.
take care of it.
Yeah.
Mike takes care of everything. So this is the library. Thank you. Okay, so library is actually a beautiful space. We use a lot. We, however, this little, I don't know if this is open.
Yep.
So this is obviously designed to be a very open space, but what we have had to do is this, if you want to just take a step over here, this is really designed to be kind of a space to house library materials. The library, it's our in-school suspension. So, again.
Spend time here?
Yeah. So this is in-school suspension, so it's not a storage space.
It was in the
In this
loading
building,
room
in
back
this
then?
room
Yeah.
here,
Loading dock?
this used to be set up to be a lot of computers in here for library research and for students to access. Now it is a special education language-based classroom. So not available, again, for the students to have access to doing research and technology. There used to be able to be also a computer lab, so classes could bring their students down, and that's no longer. This space over here, in the library's door, this used to be just another library space. There were banks of computers along the walls and stacks and stacks of books. But now, I don't know if this works, Mike, yeah. But now, because we had to take away, this used to be a computer lab. This room here used to be a computer lab. This used to be a classroom. So we had to make this a classroom and then make this the computer lab. So this is a fully functioning computer lab. Our business education teacher uses this as her teaching space. We had to add some air conditioning and that because as you can only imagine, with these machines running, it's very hot in here and there was just because it wasn't designed for this kind of space. The air, so that the airflow gets affected and all of that. So this is an example of where you wouldn't normally have a technology classroom. You might have this set up for kids to come in and do research, stacks of books. But again, we had to redesign it given the constraints that we were working under. We have set up that backspace for, we had a donation of a large screen TV from a family, and we set that up, and we do some of our professional development, we do there. Teachers, faculty meetings can be held there, and then they have access to the technology, which is a good thing. Okay, what else on this floor? Okay, so let's go to the third. Yeah, so let's go to the third. I then one of the discussions we had when we were trying to determine is, we said, well, gee, if we're going to rethink this project, why don't we maybe rethink building a high school? Building a high school, making that a flagship school, and doing that up at Pembroke land. And then my idea would have been to then create a campus program between Pearlie and Pembroke, right? Leave your middle school here, move your high school up there, and create, just a nice campus. But the problem would be that this particular building is not set up with the same size classrooms. So once you started having to have 900 square foot classrooms, you don't have any here. So all of the classrooms here would have to be upgraded and renovated. By the time you did that, plus built a new high school, that was going to be a much more costly
Well, I said, I thought it was a lot more involved because you had to change the heights of the toilets,
Oh, yeah, we
the
would have to do all of that,
stairs, and
yeah.
all this other stuff.
Oh, yeah, it would have been like literally building 2 new schools. And that just, it didn't seem like the best educational value, more costly.
turn this building here?
I mean, I would have made this, I would talk about Pembroke.
The toilets and-
The
I
classrooms
would have made
themselves.
it
Supposed to be larger.
But, we weigh all the options, cost being one of the factors. Okay, Mike, let's see, what do we want to talk about? So this is the middle. That's right, so now that we have
There's a lot more
an
into it
increase
than
in
you
middle school
realize.
population, as you saw, we had to make that shop partly an art room. In the past, we had the benefit of having a full-size classroom up here for art, so the middle school did not have to make so many transitions throughout the building. They were sort of up here and could be up here for more things.
The studs.
It's this, but we actually have some, because we don't have enough spaces for all of our high school classes, we also have some high school classes up there. But the original intention or hope, so, we still have the roof here, we patch it almost every year. But, we still have situations like this. There's the issue over there in the band room, it's built into the hill. See, it's built right into the hill. So we have significant moisture problems there. We run the dehumidifier all the time. But in the past, we've had issues like they'll hang the band uniforms there and then they'll get moist,
I'm surprised they built concrete into the ground, 'cause it's gonna leach water right off the deck.
I know, again, that's part of what the MSBA saw, is they said, okay, first when we looked at what the district spent on maintenance, we said, it didn't seem like the district was stepping up. But then when they came out here and they looked at everything and they said, oh, we get it, you're trying to mitigate things that were done in previous renovations or significant things that haven't been fixed. And so that's where Michelle's comment today about you're throwing good money after bad. That's where that came from. So they kind of changed their mind from, this is a district who has not committed itself to maintenance, to, oh, we can see you're spending money on maintenance, but it just isn't going to help you in the long run because you're trying to fix problems that are bigger than just a simple maintenance budget would be able to manage. So moisture, I agree with you. When I saw it, I said, well, why would they do that? But again, I think part of the challenge in this particular location is it's landlocked. There's really, unless you take that whole hill out, there really isn't any place else to build. There's not really any place else to add on unless you're going to go up.
Wasn't there some with ledge back there and all
Yeah.
that back then?
Yeah.
They had
Yeah, they brought the color, they could not.
The other thing that the renovation project would include is there are some spaces that are internal spaces. That means they have no lights. They do have an air exchange, but they felt that there was a disproportionate number of those and that they really weren't as conducive to learning as they would like to have seen. So that's why they started to ask about, shifting some of the classrooms away from that so that they would at least be exposed to some natural light, or blasting out a couple of windows in a couple places I'll show you. So this is another, this is a special ed room. They didn't really have as much of an issue with this because they felt like this room was big enough.
Bright enough.
It had windows, and you can see that it is bigger than the other rooms that we've been showing you. And then down here, this also again concerned them. We have an autism spectrum population that started with us from little kids, and then obviously they graduated to the middle school level, and the bottom line is, if you send one of the children out, it's $100,000 pretty much with tuition and transportation. So if you have 5 children and $500,000, you could probably do a better program for $500,000. That was our philosophy. Plus, we wanted the children to be able to stay in the district with their peers. So we created autism spectrum programs, throughout the entire district at each level. The same with kids with language-based disabilities. We have programs for them, and learning disabilities children. So, unfortunately, that meant that we had to find space for all those programs. And so this is an example. This is our middle school social emotional program. Now, the teacher did a phenomenal job in this space. Look, she painted on her own. She put sayings on the wall. But this literally used to have a makeshift wall here, and it was designed to be a storage closet. And I mean, we have children who are having a wonderful program here, but again, they looked at this space and said, that's not sufficient. Okay? And they gave us points for creativity, I mean, you're doing the best you can here, but, in this space, this is where's the compass? Where's the?
It's moved over.
Okay, sorry, I gotta go with you the other way.
Yeah.
At one point, the reason I'm going into that space is I think last year.
I think it's this closet.
Okay, well, come on up here for 1 minute. Mike's gonna take us on a little tour. This is the middle school office space. We do happen to have a child who really requires a de-escalation space, and we also haven't got spaces for our itinerant workers, like our school psychologist. And so we are making this into an office this year. Last year, this was actually a de-escalation space for one of our students that we've obviously moved to a location that's different than this now. But every single space we have is being utilized for something that we need to take care of. Our first priority is the kids and the people. But the space will only stretch.
What's the wireless situation?
The wireless, we actually were able to get, we had to replace our servers last year because our email capacity, everything was being affected. So we did replace the servers, 3-year lease agreement. And while we did that, we also appropriated money for wireless. So in this building, it's all wireless.
Anywhere you go, you've got.
Yeah, and I think that also had to do with our Nextel provider. They helped wire the building. But at the middle and the Pembroke and the Pearly, they're only selective places where drops were put. So the entire buildings aren't
So
wireless.
this has to be a tough building because of all the steel and all the segregated rooms. You're talking a lot of access points.
Oh, okay. Well, Mike, come in here for a minute. I just want to. I don't know that I'll be able to show them this as well, but when we started the Compass program, we actually, if you had walked in here, this is the room on the other side. Okay, we actually had a portable wall here. So this is an example of one of the rooms the MSBA talked about. That if you could glass a couple of windows on the side of this because it's above the roof line, that was one of the suggestions that the architect made. This one's not too bad because it's got the skylights, but there's one next to it, I think, is the one they're talking about. Just put windows on the outside of the building. That's sort of a simple solution to then make an inside room or a room that's in a location now that's being used for something to be more acceptable use of space.
It's only natural, the sunlight, it's like a flower, more of a flower, sometimes it opens up, it keeps them awake from there.
This one here, what's in here?
No, this is the other side of that special room.
Okay, great. Okay, that's not what I need then. Thank you. Okay, so what, so this
This is
would...
where we moved from. Because half of it went to the foods room.
Oh, right, okay. Right, so it sounds like what Mike is reminding me is that we did rectify one of the issues that they had, because we did have the middle school Compass program in there, and now we've moved it to this space. Which we used to use, by the way, for a Spanish. This was also at one point a middle school Spanish class. And just try to imagine 25 desks in that classroom space. So I think that's where they were able to switch the Spanish to another location and now make that into something that is a bit more appropriate for that use. What else, Mike? Do we have anything else?
Just downstairs of the foods room.
Well, let's go down. Yep, let's take one more walk down here. So to the average person who comes into a basketball game or comes into, for an activity in the cafeteria, they wouldn't necessarily see some of the issues. But when you take a walk around, you can see that business is happening and kids are learning and things are going well, but they're not in spaces that are sufficient for what the intended use was. All of our storage spaces are really being used, and Mike can tell you we've had to lease 2 storage pods to deal with some of the things that we just didn't have space for. When NEAS came, that was one of the things they commented on is the lack of storage. They commented on the lack of technology. They commented on the issues with the building, and frankly, the issues with the building, and they have right up on their website, the NEASC is right up on their website, if you have an issue with your buildings and you're put on Standard 7, which is Community Resources for Learning, you have 2 years to fix those problems or risk being downgraded. We had the visit here in 2006, and we are still fully accredited on warning. So they know we're trying to rectify and deal with these issues. So they're giving us credit for that. But who knows what will happen if we can't continue to deal with it. Okay, so this was a foods program, our Family and Consumer Science program. It is now our high school Compass program for our students who are on the autism spectrum and some of our social emotional students. We discontinued the foods program. In here, this space here,
It's a one-on-one room.
this used to be a walk-through storage, right? And last year, one of the special ed teachers, who's since retired, had his desk there. That was his workspace. Now this is a one-on-one space because this is a specialized program and it does require some students to have access. Now, the nice thing about this particular room being for this particular purpose is because one of the things that you want to do is help students, especially at the high school level, transition into the world of work. So they have an opportunity in here to do some cooking and some life skills kind of thing. So, we don't really think it's a bad space for it, but it's just, unfortunately, it would normally be a classroom project program for students. And this is where we offer our speech services. That was another issue that the MSBA pointed out is the lack of speech and language spaces. Again, this is all converted. This used to literally be shelves for the food. Oh, actually, there was actually a washer dryer here for the home ec program. That's not here. So again, we converted these things to get our needs met. But
Has anybody ever considered doing a research study or something, trying to figure out if it's worth enhancing, like the building, try to turn this into a profitable type business within the school, so the school can actually pull money in from it?
yeah, we
In
did.
other words, expand it?
Yep, we have talked about that. We just really constructed the program within the last 2 years. But yeah, like some schools will actually have, seniors can be invited in for lunch and pay a small amount of fee. Is that what you're talking about, something like that?
No, not just that. I'm just talking like the special education itself as a whole also,
Yep.
where, there is such a
Oh, you
need
mean-
for special needs
Oh.
care and stuff like that, so you could also not only just service Georgetown, but the surrounding
Well-
communities by having a model state-of-the-art type
Right.
program.
Well, yes, and we that's one of the things I would look to at Pearlie, is that the collaboratives are always looking for spaces, right? So that we get a benefit to have our kids maybe go for free and then they get to charge. Or we do exactly what you're saying, tuition. We have 2 or 3 spaces, we can tuition students in, right, and make some profit,
Right.
to help offset our things. So yeah, we already do that on some tuition basis, but honestly, in these spaces, people aren't generally interested in paying to have their children come here because they're really not what they consider to be all that
the way they
sufficient.
are
So
right
yes, if we were to be able to reposition classrooms and put those things together, certainly, and we appreciate that we have some neighbors that help us with specific kids that maybe our program isn't good for, so we do have some partnerships in that way.
I think the last place is the weight room on the shelf.
Okay, we'll show you the weight room and then we'll wrap back up with the rest. Oh, Mike, the auditorium.
Oh, yeah.
We're just in the auditorium.
Yeah, that's right.
But the auditorium, the whole back of it, I don't know if you noticed while we were sitting there, this is a big issue with NEASC. This was a big issue with NEASC. Like Laura LaFlamme, who's our choral teacher, this is her teaching space, this is their classroom. So most schools do not have an auditorium on their people teaching. The problem is Laura's program is such that there's not space up in the music room to put her. There's only one big space, and that's where the band director does his teaching. And there's some small group practice spaces, but there's not a separate space for her. She has a lot of kids that participate. So she needs to have a classroom that's appropriately sized to fit more than your average 25 kids. She's got some classes that are, 50, 75 kids by the time she's done. So, but they have cited this every single time that they feel that that we should not be having the stage as a teaching space. So part of the renovation discussion is how do we find a room within this school that's big enough to accommodate the choral music program?
You gonna say something?
Well, I don't know, I know you've said that, and
Yeah.
I understand what they're telling you.
Yeah.
And I know times have changed, everything's changed.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in chorus in high school, we were in the auditorium.
Right.
And I never thought, us underprivileged.
But were you
kids.
always there like for your classroom, or you were there for rehearsals and practices?
Well,
Because that's what should be the case, is this should be open and available for people to come in, the drama club come in, we now have a drama program, so she doesn't really have access to the stage because Laura's really teaching most periods. Plus the school, and Laura has to cancel classes in order for anybody in the school to gather in the auditorium. This is the only large space for people to gather. So it's not that we wouldn't want her to use this space and wouldn't see her using the space regularly and frequently. It's just that this is the only space she has, and it really renders the space useless
Right,
for any other purposes. But she does a phenomenal job, and she's made this very cozy and made it work. But it's just. Just like MSBA is looking at, saying, we want all schools to have a level playing field. We want all kids in our public school system in Massachusetts to have access to current technology, to have, spaces that are appropriately sized so that you can have the kind of instruction that you need today. And so when they come in and they look, they're not looking at, gee, you're not meeting the needs of the kids. They're saying, we see that you're doing that, but we're saying our kids are not getting the same access to the facilities that they believe that their intention is that that's what their money's for, is that to out-level the playing field. So, and the thing is, a lot of people have said, the town hasn't spent any money on maintenance. Now, I will guarantee you that we haven't spent as much as we should have or we could have. But I also can tell you that with the exception of very few communities across the state, that's the case for most places. That they are not, they don't have a preventative maintenance plan that's considered to be completely sufficient. I think it's incorrect for people to say, the schools have, just for years and years, let this places fall into disrepair. I can tell you there's a lot of things that have been done and continue to be done very creatively. Out of those spaces I told you walls were put in, those were all done by our own guys. So stuff is definitely being done. It's just that some of this stuff is of a bigger magnitude that, you have to have a real coordinated plan and a funding source to be able to do it. So this, again, is supposed to be a storage space, and our athletic department has created a lending tool weight room. But again, if you go into most schools, as part of their athletic wing, there's a space with, these are all donated machines, which are always very, very grateful for. But there is a moisture problem in here, and there's a drip down over there, which Mike is in his group tried desperately to stay ahead of. And if you had seen this room 6 months ago, you would have been like, you're kidding me, right? But it's quite amazing what it's turned out to be. But again, it's dark, it's cold, it's really not, really conducive to the kinds of things that we would like to be able to offer to our athletes. Okay, but we wanted just you to see it anyway. Mike and his crew have been really creative. These floors right here, these are all, this one was always tiled. But these floors here, these were all like really yucky carpets, like sort of like these, although these aren't as bad as the one that was here. And as we've had money, we've tried to set aside money, small amount, and the override did help because we were able to purchase some up-to-date equipment for the custodians to use, and we were able to hire actually one custodian back because we had to cut back over the course of the years. Hi guys. And so we were able to restore that, and we were able to restore some supplies and materials. So one of the things we did do, we yanked those carpets up and put new tiles down. And we put new tiles in the administrative wing, and the whole goal would be, you know, as you walk down those halls, you see some of those halls are pretty, the carpets are really, really well worn and yucky.
This makes it easier to clean and it doesn't hold as much,
And it's brighter,
Dead skin
you
or
know,
whatever you wanna call it.
so, and I think it, you know, gives a different impression of the school when you come in. So, you know, we are trying desperately to do things as we're able to do them, because we do, like, just painting. You know, our custodians have spent time every summer painting and getting ahead of it, because a good coat of paint doesn't cost a lot of money, but it makes a huge difference. So, you know, we are committed to the maintenance of the building and, you know, doing as much as we can on our own, but some of the issues that are called for in a potential renovation for the school are to address bigger issues that should help us going forward, if done, to maintain the building more efficiently and to address some of those situations from getting worse.
A recent thing we just did was put surveillance cameras throughout the whole building. We did it ourselves with just the cost of the supplies. We had like a $20,000 price if we had a contract to do it, so it was a good savings to the district.
And part of what, you know, hiring Mike and then hiring, we sort of specialize some of our custodians. So for example, it's always bothered me, these bathrooms over here that are in the cafeteria, they just, they just never met my standards. And, you know, this summer, one of the custodians that we hired and our person who works in the facilities department and the maintenance department, they completely replaced these bathrooms just for the cost. So again, yeah, do you want to take a look at Yeah, Mike can take you in and show it off the
I'm a firm believer
handiwork.
in keeping work in-house if you can.
Yeah, well, but you know what, you got to strategically hire the right people, right, who can do it. And that's what we've been doing, is looking, you know, because, you know, we had who we had, and, you know, as people have left, we said, well, what's missing, you know, what do we need? And we have to hire some pretty clever
Head
guys.
out, but this was great.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you taking
Thank
the
you so
time to
much.
come. All right, bye-bye. Football kids are excited to play on their football field today. Happy for them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Charlie, and thank you, Richie, for doing that. I appreciate it. And,
Thank you, I hope we didn't hold you up.
No, I'm gonna go to the football game, so it's just on my list, and the Donahoe race tomorrow, so
Today's a good day for
it's a full weekend of Georgetown activities, which is great.